Okay, this is my beloved 64 Fender Jazz bass. I bought this, I want to say it was somewhere in 1980, and when I bought it, it smelled like mildew. It was covered in green gold sparkle paint. The pickguard was covered in flat black paint. It was filthy. It had screws driven in the back, which was actually a Fender option for like a waist strap, believe it or not, back then. The waist strap was in the case. The headstock was also covered in that nasty gold green, whatever it was. And I bought the instrument from a guy for $300 with the case, with the original case, and I didn't know what the original color was until after I I got the black paint off of the pickguard. I realized, okay, it's a white pickguard, so it's not a sunburst, it's going to be a custom color or something. And as I was getting underneath that horrible paint that was on there, I realized it was it was originally a candy apple red, but I couldn't save the paint, it was too far gone. The oversprayed paint had etched into it, so there was no possibility of salvaging it. I just couldn't do it. So I stripped it down, and at the time I had a finisher in Miami or Hollywood that redid the finish for me, did it in a sunburst. I left the back of the neck original. All of that is the original finish of the neck, all nice and old. And, if I remember correctly, it was bought from Sunnyland Music in Miami in 1964, and I bought it in, I would say again, the Hollywood area, maybe Fort Lauderdale where I lived. I can't remember exactly. As soon as I took it apart, I started to strip it down and get the try to get it in condition. One thing I did notice is that the neck was perfectly straight. The truss rod looked like it had never been touched, and when I rebuilt the bass, the neck was still perfectly straight. And in all those years, I've only had to turn the rod a couple times just for minor adjustments. So this is one of those great, wonderful golden basses that, 1 out of 1,000 basses in my opinion. And I loved it, and it inspired me to play a lot. And I gigged a lot on this bass. This was the one that just practiced every day, played every night. Didn't want to play any other bass. I had other Fenders, but this was the one. This was the one. This is my. So that's pretty much the history of it. The history of it from when I got it. And as I told you before when we were talking, Jocko borrowed this bass from me 3 times. I think at least 3 times. And every time he returned it, there wasn't a scratch on it. He really treated it well. I was afraid he was going to hurt it because he's kind of rough on his basses, but he really loved this bass as well. And every one of my friends that played it felt the same. It was just a killer instrument. So it raised the bar for me, this instrument. This was it. Of all the basses I ever had back then, this was the one.
So what about this bass in particular? Are attributes that you made sure that the referencers on the basses had?
Well, one of the things that I noticed about this bass when I really studied it and said, what is it about this bass that makes it? It's got a very stiff and very rigid, solid neck. The neck is like a rock. It's made out of probably the hardest maple, the hardest what they call rock maple, sugar maple, northern maple. Very stable. That was one of the things, stability. But that's all my basses. Any bass I ever built needed to be stable, but particularly for that sound, I wanted the neck to be really solid. Feeling, and as far as standing up to the elements, it's got to be solid. Got to be like a rock. It's like your keyboard on a piano. The other thing is that the weight of the instrument, it's not heavy, yet it's not light. It's what do we say, Goldilocks?
Just right.
Just right, yeah. The pickups, I don't remember how they read as far as on an ohm meter, but again, Goldilocks. They're not really hot and they're also not really weak. The The weaker pickups tend to have great bandwidth and a nice brightness to them, and this hi-fi kind of thing. And the ones that were wound a little heavier tend to be a little more heavy sounding, obviously,
Right.
more bass. These are right in the middle, and these are the original pickups, and they're right in the middle. Even the pots, which isn't essential, but the pots and the cap are original in this bass. So it's body's older, and like I said, it's not a heavy bass, but it's not a light bass either. This is that that mid-weight alder that I've used extensively. I find I seek it out. The lightweight stuff still sounds good, but the heavier, you know, not boat anchor, but the heavier alder, the mid-weight alder, to me has more low mid to it. It cuts better.
Right.
It punches out there better. Yeah. So those are the attributes I was looking for in the instrument, and I would intentionally go that route. Sometimes it would make the bar. Sometimes it would go beyond the bar. You know. Sometimes it would be a little under. You know, I'd be disappointed if it was a little under. You know.
Right.
But it doesn't make it bad, because you know this is what I was aiming for.